architect, curator, critic, full professor of theory of architecture at the University of Campania, PhD in theory and the history of architecture. He writes as an independent critic for Italian and international newspapers and magazines. He is a scientific director of the M9 Museum in Mestre, Venezia. This is the annual theme-based review launched in 2017 by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in collaboration and with the support of the Italian Ministry of Culture. It consists of an extensive program of promotional events around the world, and every year, specifically for this occasion, over 100 testimonials became storytellers presenting design and Italy's outstanding creativity. Let me finish reminding that on June the 1st at 8 p.m. here at the Sheikh Ibrahim Center, we'll host again a concert organized for the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Italian-Bahrain relations. Looking forward to seeing you all again here very soon. So I leave the floor to Professor Molinari. Thank you very much. Enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much to my ambassador, Paola Amedei, and thank you for the invitation here. I want to, first of all, Salam Alaikum. I want to thank you very much, Sheikh Hamei and the Sheikh Ibrahim Center for the warm hospitality. I spent 3 beautiful days here, and it's my 3rd time in Bahrain, so I get used to come because every time I discover fantastic architecture, and one of the best things I ever seen the last year about contemporary architecture is based here. So I want to thank about that. And I would like, can you hear me? Because I have a strange, okay, so it's not me. Okay. Well, probably, yeah, it's always my fault. In my life, it's always like that. So I can give you this horrible machine? Okay, thank you. I hate it. Sorry, eh?
Sorry for that. No.
It's a kind of performance every time. Oh, very good. Okay, my beautiful voice can be fully explained. So I start with this. Because a few years ago, 8 years ago, I was watching to the date, I had the chance to work with Noura Sayeh, who's here, and thanks for that, because we were together curator of the National Pavilion in 2010 during the Biennale, and for the first time I discovered Bahraini culture. And then Noura invited me to visit this emerging project about the, let's say, the restoration and the recovery of Muharraq. And for me, it was an amazing discovery. And with the first squares they were started designing, we did this public conversation, a private conversation in public spaces, which was for me the chance to visit for the first time this area of the city. And I must say that after 10 years, I can consider this area one of the most interesting laboratory between conservation and contemporary architecture today, all over the world, I would say. You must be proud of it, because there are very few places like this in this moment, where you have the good time, the big picture, the vision, the diffuse quality between conservation and contemporary architecture, a sense of belonging to the place, a history and community. So it's not just a restoring building, is belonging to a place and working with the community. And at the same time, the idea that the good design can be experimental and open to a changing world with very urgent challenges. The world is changing so fast, but in the meantime, we need to work on what we have, just not to lose ourselves. And for me, all those elements represented the best idea to describe the notion of design. This is something that we can share. It's not just Italian design. It's a common idea that generates a diffuse quality in the everyday life. This is the most important effect of good design. Good design can change the quality of your life, non-depending by the budget. Because with the same quantity of money, you can do something very good or something terribly horrible. And so, and I think in this place, in Muarak, I saw the best quantity of investment based on the best quality produced. And this is something you must be proud of it, and I'm very happy that I saw, after 8 years, this thing. And that's why I wanted to open my lecture about that, because just to share with you a common idea of design: quality, community, belonging, body, experience, and something which change everyday life for everybody. It's not a matter of culture, it's not a matter of person, gender, whatever. It's a matter of human being and what a good design can affect on that. So, and then, oh, I'm sorry, they told me that the opposite. And then another experience here, which is related to my lecture, which is about food. Last night I was walking here around, and there was a baker working in the full of the night. And since I'm a curious person and I love cooking, I enter and I just smile, because you know the only way is the common language is smiling, and say may I, and say may I, and they were producing bread, no? You saw it many times. And this is something that is here, but has been spread all around Mediterranean area, no? In the south, in the southern part, in the northern part. And it makes me reflect about the idea that good design is everywhere. The good design is the oven, the circularity, the elements to take it off, the timing, the material, and then the final result and the taste. Good design is a whole experience, is a 360-degree experience. So talking about food and design is talking about everything, because if you are good to cook, you must know everything. You must know the chemistry of the materials, the timing, the quality of the material you are cooking with, and finally, the layout. So we design everything. This is very important, because sometimes we think that the good design is the chair or a table or the Ferrari, whatever, but good design is everything. We design every day, in every moment. Since we are not acknowledged that, we don't think we design, but if we are aware about the tools we are using, we can produce a better quality in our life. So I think that the best way for me to start talking about Italian food and design is to start with this amazing experience I had last night. And the bread was so good and warm and fantastic. And this guy who gave it to me as a present, because since I was watching, they gave me this bread as a gift, and I smile again, and it was a fantastic way of thinking that food is exchanging experience. No? It's a dialogue. Food is a dialogue. And then I come to this. Okay, Italy, no? Everybody thinks that Italy is a beautiful postcard, and somehow it is, but it's not. We tend to fix icons and postcards without thinking that life is consuming and changing things continuously. So Italy is a beautiful postcard for everybody, but every city is a dynamic flow of things, no? Bodies and architecture. Even architecture can change continuously. Tomorrow you will celebrate the restoration of a beautiful minarets, and the restoration shows that even a beautiful minaret as a monument is a living body. No? Architecture is always a living body, is breathing with us. And this is so important to understand. It's not mineral. It's a body living with us, exchanging with us. So Italy as a country, it's every country, but in our case, sometimes we suffer the fact of being a postcard, no? Because everybody look at Italy as a place to be the monument, the beautiful postcard. But then behind the postcards, we have the real life. And it's the same for design. No? If you Google Italian design on Google, they offer you thousands of images. No? You have other icons, other elements, other from MoMA, or the museums, and Ferrari, all the brand you can imagine are based on this idea of iconicity of Italian design. But tonight I would like to give you something different and to show you that behind design there are processes, there are people, there are desires, there's experimentation, there's culture. And this is much more important to say about that, because then when you know that behind every object there's so many things, you take this with more care, and you consider part of your life. So 2 years ago I was asked to be the director of M9 Museum. This museum was built and opened in 2018 after an international oops, what I did not, sorry, okay. Oh, this is a machine, very dangerous. Was designed and built as a huge renovation of the center of Mestre, nearby Venice, on the mainland. It's a restoration of a huge area of the city. It's an investment of a private foundation of 120 million euro, so it's a huge investment. And the museum is part of it. The museum is very particular because, well, the competition was won by Sauerbrucker Hatton, a very well-known German firm, who designed a urban layout. Keeping the size of the building lower than the other buildings around. So a kind of monumental domestic building, because looking at that, it seems very aggressive, but it is not, because when you just turn the road, you don't see it. So this is very interesting to see. But what is interesting about this museum is that M9 is the only museum devoted to the history of 20th century in Italy, which is a difficult century, let's say, 2 World War, fascism, whatever you can imagine. And so to devote a museum to such a difficult century is very important. I think it's meant to be in Italy. A lot of countries doesn't know that kind of museum. And it's also the biggest multimedia museum in Italy, because we don't have original documents, but it's mainly multimedia, so video, photo, audio, whatever you can imagine. So it's a kind of immersive experience. And 2 years ago, in the middle of pandemia, I was asked to regenerate the museum and to think to a new program of that. And for this reason, I imagined a triennial set of exhibition about contemporary and future life of Italy. So we use the 20th century as a starting point, but then the museum is devoted to present and future. It's a kind of, let's say, cultural institution today must be a place for experimentation, for imagination about the future, because we are in such a difficult and metamorphic time that we need places to reflect on that. So for this reason, we opened this exhibition, which is called Gusto, Italiani a tavola, 1917-2050, which means taste, the Italians at the table. The dates are the same, 1970-2050. Why those dates, first of all? Because we have been reflecting on the present of the situation, but mainly considering the work on the food, looking forward for the future. And gusto, for me, is a very interesting word, because taste, in a way, combine individual and collective. It's my taste, what I like, but then my taste is a telling to the others, and we share the same taste or different tastes. So it's very interesting because it's an individual and collective word, and also at the same time is a scientific element, so it meant also something objective, and it's related to something which in a way speaks in a completely different way, in a circular way, to the idea of food and our society and our environment. So this is the manifesto. The manifesto, I like it. It's a tongue and the heart together, and it's a kind of it looks like, it reminds me Enzo Mari design as well, and it's very strong. You can see in the street of Venice, you see it very well, and it works immediately. And it's nice because the heart and the tongue plays together with the brain and your experience about food. So it's a very good representation of something which is immaterial, because taste is something completely immaterial. So it was not easy to make an exhibition about food that you cannot show, because you cannot put a plate of pasta in an exhibition for 8 months, no? I mean, it can be very dangerous. So we invited Massimo Montanari, who was one of the senior lecturers about Italian food in Italy, and Laura Lazzaroni, who is very well-known emerging, let's say, blogger about food. So we mixed generation, and we did something which I think is very interesting. So I show you some images about the exhibition, and explain you why I choose the exhibition to make this lecture talking about Italian Design Day. Since we are talking about sustainability and good design, I think that food is a very interesting element. So food, first of all, is a multi-layered product. I mean, you can, if you see a plate of pasta or a mozzarella, you just see a mozzarella, but you don't see only mozzarella. You see the people behind, the landscape behind, the milk, the composition, the technique, the experimentation, the changes of size, the marketing, the images, all the recipes you can cook with. A lot of situations that are layering behind, in front of something very simple, which is just a mozzarella, okay? And food is mainly is an anonymous research on materials and their potentials. If you look at the form of Parmigiano Reggiano, of Parma ham or whatever, you think that it's a fixed image. But if you see the size of Parmigiano Reggiano along 8 centuries, you see how it changes so much a long time. So every food is a form of anonymous experimentation, which means that there are generations of techniques and people working together to produce something which is eternal, which represents a society. In the meantime, it's a generational effort. Every generation produces its own food and keeps something. It's a long productive chain from landscape to community, no? So every product of our land is a result of our land and of the mind and heart and hands of people. So this is very important. So food is always the product of something. We don't have to forget it, even though we find it in the supermarket. It's very important to see what's behind everything. And then it's always dynamic. Food changes continuously and change along time and along cultural identity, along society, because every society shapes its own food. And then food is a design product on every level. It's not, I'm not just talking about the box and the marketing and the branding, but it's really a design product in the terms I'm telling you. But then, at the meantime, we have the table, Italiani a tavola. The table is very important because the table is the other side. Table is the place between public and private. It's the place where we meet, exchange, cook, dialogue, taste. So it's such a fundamental taste in every kind of civilization. Every civilization has table at the center. And it's something between sacred and intimate and private. It's a place for the holy place in every civilization, but in the meantime, it's the most domestic element you can find. So talking about table means a lot in terms of our culture and our civilization. That's why I like to join together food and the table and community together. And the exhibition is a kind of a village where you can move around, and now you will see that strange puzzle there, and which is this one. This one is the graphic representation of more than 250 DOP and DOC, which means the original food coming from all the different regions in Italy. It's a huge room where all this kind of puzzle has every box a different name of a different product between pasta, bread, food, cheese, vegetables, fruit. And you see that all those small colors are one specific product of our land, which means that Italy is the biggest ecosystem on food ever in the world, one of the biggest. See, because this shows clearly, in terms of number, how many original products we still have, because it meant in effect that we lost a lot. We lost a lot of original products in the industrialization program, process. But this is very important just to show immediately the richness of our ecosystem. And the ecosystem is another part of that layer. No? This shows the richness, the complexity, and the quality of what we represent, or what each mozzarella and apple and pear, whatever it means, represent. No? And this is important because behind those ecosystems, we have those images, the so-called postcards. Images which represents very well the essence of Italian, this is rice fields, by the way, of each of each landscape, no? Where, well, this is a cheese factory and the grain fields, but the multi-layered composition of the landscapes of food is very important to give the idea of the quality that is behind food and its design. And what happened in the last 50 years, we have to switch from tradition to a large production. What is one of the challenges of the past century is to give food to everybody. To give food to everybody with a certain quantity and quality. This is very important. I remember once I was talking with Mr. Barilla, which was the honor to work with, and he says, look, you know, it's easy to make as a craftsman, one single box of artisan pasta, but the challenge is to produce millions of very good pasta the same quality. And this is something which shows very well the idea of industrialization versus quality. No? There's no difference for me from this. The hand of this old woman is called in Italian rezdora, is the girl able to produce tortellini by hand. So it's a very old name, and the rezdore has the knowledge in their hands, no? And they produce hundreds of tortellini every hour. So for me, there's no difference between that image and the one below here, because the same kind of awareness and quality diffused on a large scale, for me, is the challenge for this century and for the coming years. So, in a way, and this is a design product. It is a design process because you design the production, you design every single pasta has been designed by somebody. And then I will show you some elements. So we move from food for few to food for everybody. Food and industry emerging new icons, no? And icons is very interesting because you move from the typical pasta of Barilla to those two icons. Those two icons, look at the dates. Nutella has been invented in 1964. Tic Tac has been invented in 1969. You know why Tic Tac? You know Tic Tac probably, no? This taka 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 taka. Okay. It was invented because there was a fashion of 1969 is the man on the moon. So the idea that this small candy should represent the astronaut food, no? So it's the product of science fiction and this imaginary of designing the future. But so it's so fun to imagine that today this science fiction dream is just a taka 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 in our pocket. But I love showing the dates because Nutella, which for us as generation is something eternal, is just 2 years older than me. So, which is fun. Date, iconicity, technology, design, because even the box of Nutella has been designed, even that the sound of tic-tac, tic-tac has been designed. Achille Castiglioni was saying, when you switch on and off on a light, you also design the sound of the lamp. So the sound is part of our daily life, you know? So this is very important. So just to say that industrialization brought this kind of effect on our daily life, because everybody knows Nutella, because it's a kind of icon. And the other side is the experimental food, the new cuisine, no? And this is Gualtiero Marchesi. Gualtiero Marchesi is one of our Picasso of the Italian cooking. He really reinvented Italian cooking, no? Because one very important thing is you must know that in Italian cooking, the big difference between the French is that in Italy, you see what you eat. This is very important, the sincerity of Italian food, no? When you eat French, you don't see what you eat. You see what you don't understand. But well, I'm sorry, I'm Italian. Okay. By the way, well, you know, it's natural. But Gualtiero Marchesi introduced abstraction in cooking, no? Introduced experimentation. He started thinking that the image of the food is important as well as what you eat, because before you start eating, you look at. So you start eating with your eyes, and then your eyes play with your brain, and then with your tongue, and then with your desire, and then you start eating, and you are happy. No? It's all a neurobiological process which plays with the fact that in 1980s you don't need to eat to survive anymore. You eat to have an experience, and this is very important. The new cuisine, which is Paul Bocuse in France or Gualtiero Marchesi in Italy, means having food as a kind of existential, sensual, cultural experience. No? So every plate here is designed. You see, this is one of the most famous icons of the gold leaf on risotto, no? which became the icon of Gualtiero Marchesi, but to say that with Gualtiero Marchesi something changed, and the idea of designing a plate entered very much into that. And today, after Gualtiero Marchesi, who unfortunately passed away last year, we have Massimo Bottura, who is the other icon of Italian cooking, no? And again, if you go through his plate, and inside the exhibition, we have two sections, one eating at home, where beautiful kitchen design in the last 40 years, and then the other one is gusto fuori casa, so the taste outside the house, which means the trattoria, the ristoranti, and the research restaurant, I would say. Because the people, my experts say, we don't say ristoranti stellate, star restaurant, they don't like, they say restaurant of research, which is more chic. And so we have this section with all these elements of the plates, of the 10 icons of Italian food, which has been represented with a very sophisticated reproduction, like this one. And this kind of pantheon of the best Italian chef. You can find a lot of people probably you know. And about what is interesting, after Gualtiero Marchesi, the representation of food changed completely. So I just go through those elements, which are, you don't know what you see in this case, but they are so beautiful and such incredibly interesting. This is, for example, is a broken apple tart. And, but what is very interesting, because all those plates come from Bottura, and Bottura, when he does the conferences, he always say, I fully respect Italian tradition, but since I respect it, I can destroy it and rebuild it, keeping the same taste, keeping the same quality of the materials, but redesigning the plate. So in a way, it deconstructs the plate itself and generate landscapes, no? Those plates are real landscapes. So when I'm talking about design, I'm talking about that. And another section in the exhibition is about design and food. And we organized this section just around the actions of Italian food. So just breaking the Parmesan cheese, or making a coffee, or just dropping the pasta. So few action about Italian food related to design. But I'm not entered. Just to say that the Italian design in the last 20, 25 years has been so much concentrated on food and actions. So a corkscrew can become an amazing element with Alessandro Mendini, no? Look at this, oh, sorry, I was too fast, okay. No. Tuck, tuck, okay. And another one, or the other action of the grater, or the pasta drill. So every single simple action can become an act of beauty, can become an experimentation using stainless steel material, designing something which is apparently so simple, but that can become, in the meantime, an amazing aesthetic experience. And this is another very interesting object. He won the Compasso d'Oro, which is our golden medal for Italian design in the year 2000, by two very young designers at that time, which is the Moscardino, which was representing an emerging situation, which was the happy hour. No? In the happy hour, you drink and eat something, and so they generate this completely sustainable material using recycled plastic, which is a fork and a spoon together, just to take things when you drink your happy hour at that time. It was so successful that now Alessi is producing these in steel. So this object has 20 years life. So it's still under production, and it became a kind of icon. But what is interesting to me is that this small object is representing a changing attitude of life in our action, no? Instead of having a stupid fork in plastic that you throw away, you have this element which in a way reflect a changing habit in the day of everyday life. So this is the good design for me. Or designing new biscuit, or look at this fantastic sugar that is floating and dropping in the coffee slowly, so it can be irony. Or designing new pasta, like Giorgetto Giugiaro, who designed for Barilla this new pasta. So to say everything you eat is designed by somebody. And designing means also producing, because you design the production. You don't only design the object, you know? You design the marketing, you design the advertisement, you design the communication, you design the process. So, and this is very important, because sometimes we think that design is just object, but it's much more than that. So, and the last section of the exhibition is about the future. So, how it will be a plate of spaghetti in the near future, no? So the challenge about sustainability, about fake food, about the missing of water, the mixing of heart. So this section is about that, and we show material from the astronaut, so how to eat Italian food, this how to have a coffee machine in the space mission. This has been used by Lavazza and Arcotec in this, actually in the space, with our astronaut, and this oil is in the space in this moment with Samantha Cristoforetti, and this producer, you see, this is symbol is Coldiretti. Coldiretti is the Association of Italian Agriculture, so it's the best oil possible, but designed and produced to stay without gravity in the space. Or Ravioli Rano is producing a new kind of ravioli for the future, which means that in this moment, Italian industry that are investing on that are thinking how we will eat in the next future. You must know that in 10 years, there will be probably the first mission to produce vegetable on the moon. So they are working on that now. It's not science fiction. It's something that is on the way, is going on. And the Italian industry is working on that with NASA and MIT and other international institutions. Okay, the table. This object was designed by Francesco Librizzi and Matilde Cassani for a Triennale exhibition a few years ago, and it's called The Room. And for me, it's the perfect representation of the table as archetype. So the table is one table, few elements, one floor, chairs, and elements on it. So it's the beautiful representation of a contemporary design through the reflection of what does it mean an archetype. And the table is something that, I told you, is together, is sharing, is community, is legacy. And but if you go through, and this is very important, because this is something I want to tell you, because sometimes people think that Italian design is just a product of the 20th century. But we produce Italian designs in 3,000 years. So it's Etruscan, Roman, Byzantine produced design. And this is a Roman table. Look at this vase, look at the plate. This is from Pompeii. And if you go through the history of Italian art, the table is at the center of our sacred representation, where every time there's a city, there's the idea of community, there's crowd, there are animals, your life, you have food, you can study all the food on those tables and just design, reconstruct a history of Italian culture through cooking, only using those fantastic frescoes. These are from 15th and 16th century. This is a Palazzo Te in Mantova, or this is Tintoretto, or this is Caravaggio. Where every time you have the table, you have gathering, you are staying together, you are sharing experience, you can feel the smell, you can see, if you look at the basket, you look at the glass and the plate and this beautiful amphora, you see how everything has been designed to be on the table. The table is a set, is a stage, is a kind of theater. So it's a representation of daily life, is a landscape of object, no? And this is very important. So next time you will look at those frescoes, look at the details. And, well, tables, we always design tables, this is Aldo Rossi, just to say that the table is something that goes on and on and on. And we go back to Francesco Librizzi and Matilde Cassani, and to this idea that the basket of Caravaggio and this basket of fruit by Librizzi is in a way talking about the same kind of word. Okay, now I would like to, moving from food, I would like just to give you some elements about what does it mean talking about Italian design. I think it's important to get from food to a larger picture, and I will be fast, don't worry, I will not kill you. So we have been talking about those elements since now, no? To be simple, to be functional, to be without time, to consider human size as the size, and everything is designed, and to be sincere. No? So this is something which is the representation of what I feel being the Italian design. And so you can move from Papa al Pomodoro, which is the perfect example of recycled food. So this is the day after food. No? All the civilization has a day after recipes, which is so well designed, to this idea of continuities, no? Between ages. And this is, for me, is very important, because this winery machine has been designed by Leonardo da Vinci to double the production for Antinori family, who still produce Chianti now. And they call the young Leonardo to double the production. So it was a machine to work. And with this machine, Contantinori can produce double wine with one machine. And the machine is still there in a beautiful architectural design by Archea office in the Chianti winery. Is a beautiful contemporary architecture, and inside you have this material. So even this machine is a beautiful piece of design, no? Because it meant generate a process which is, which is on one side is a beautiful piece of design, but in the meantime it produces something which is very important. So what is design Italian? From Roman to Middle Age to Aldo Rossi, or from Roman glass to Carlo Scarpa, I don't see any difference, by the way. Or from Gio Ponti to a basket in Pompeii, or from a Roman glass to Venini glass in the 20s, or from a Roman chair to Ignazio Gardella chair in the 30s, or from this amazing work by Bernard Rudowski, who used to live in Pompeii, in Naples, when he was just copying the Roman sandals and produced a new line of sandals in the 30s, which became so fashionable that you can buy them now in Capri when you go there. So good design is without time because it's resistant to fashion and it's something that you can wear on it. So for me, this is very important. When we are talking about sincerity, you look at the materials, the technique, the design, and the fact that things resist a long time. No? But then after the Second World War, we have to face mass production. So we enter in a new phase of symbol and icons, no? Which are representing a completely different life. And then from that age, we enter in this idea of design as icons, and Alessi is one of the most interesting, let's say, ecosystems, showing that from the object to the production, to the iconicity, to the communication system, to the publicity, everything is an ecosystem representing today what is design. And this is very interesting. Imagine the basket in Roman age and look at the Alessi ecosystem. You see how much developed is the history of Italian design in the last 50 years. And then the other element for us is being urban. Italy is an urban country. We have hundreds of cities. You can just travel through Italy, just traveling from one city to another. So we are natural citizens. And so for us, the idea is from the spoon to the city. We design everything. We design the spoon, we design the city. So Gio Ponti can design a beautiful tower, and in the meantime, the cutlery from San Bonnet. Or Aldo Rossi can imagine a coffee machine, in the meantime, designing the Teatro del Mondo floating in the water in front of the Venice in the Biennale of 1982. And this Teatro del Mondo is a beautiful representation of a monument without roots. But in the meantime, Aldo Rossi can do a kind of self-portrait of himself through the objects he loves. No? We are the object we have. Every house is the object we are. And this is very important. We have a very sentimental relationship with objects and their desire on that. Connecting to home, we have the city, we have the house. We are a domestic civilization, so we have a very strong relationship with the idea of the house, and every house is a landscape of objects and life changing continuously. From Pompeii to Gio Ponti, you see, I'm playing with images just to see the degree of continuities, which I think is one of the most interesting things and more seductive things I find in the Italian culture. No? Since arriving to this beautiful cover of a book called Italy Builds, where the Gothic Cathedral of Siena is together with Pierluigi Nervi. No? So the same kind of rationalism, and the subtitle is Modern Architecture and is Heritage. So they play together. And community, no? Community is living together, staying together, spending time together, sharing objects, space, designing landscape of living, and designing new experience. This was the Biennale at the Italian Pavilion I did with Francesco Librizzi in the year 2000, which was meant to be a landscape of a project where people used to meet. You know? So even an exhibition can be a place for a fluid community, let's say, or just designing a very good square with a good quality, just for everyday life. No? Good design cannot be always yelling. Good design can be very silentful. And Muharak shows that good design is silentful. And this is the best way because it enters in your life without imposing. And I think it's to be discreet for architecture is one of the most important attitude you can find. And then the traditional fight between nature and artifice. Architecture is always against nature. Don't forget it. We built architecture to protect ourselves against nature. Now we live with a sense of guiltiness for destroying nature, but architecture has been designed to protect ourselves against nature. This place, this building, as nearly is 10th century BC, so it's 12,000 years. And look at how it's carved the stone. And look at the section, look at the plants. This was very much loved by Aldo Rossi. It's an amazing, and it's a solar watch. So during twice a year, the light enters perfectly and touch the water and root the building, which is a holy place, to the heart and to the sky. So there's a connection, amazing connection between architecture, the place, and the world, just designing something which has been built 12,000 years ago. And I just come back to the quality of the stone. When you go there, you can touch it, you don't understand how did they build it 12,000 years ago. And so the relationship between artifact and nature is always representing everywhere, here, there. This is Joe Ponti drawing showing the architecture and the garden inside, and Villa Malaparte in Capri by Adalberto Libera, or John Cage and Archizoom playing within artifice and nature. And so works that in a way always play within those elements, And moving to that, material and colors are the base. When a civilization is poor like ours, we play with the colors and light and poor material. So we do the best with the less. And like in Italian cooking sometimes, or using very simple material where colors can make the difference. This is a very famous Valentina by Ettore Sottsa's 1960s, another beauty. It was the first portable typewritten machine ever built in the world. It's a fantastic piece, you should buy it. It's beautiful, I love it, really. And it's plastic, so light, so elegant. Even the box is fantastic. And architecture and the colors play together through generation. This is Memphis in the 80s. This is the so-called postmodernist design, where a new way of using colors, forms, geometries, and shapes define a new kind of attitude in relation to spaces. Look at the beauty and the joyfulness of this space. And this is a Proust chair by Alessandro Mendini, just to see that how a good architecture using colors when they don't have money. And like in this case, or in this case. Okay, and or using even the deep black. This is a Forma Fantasma. They've been working with the charcoal to produce this fantastic piece of good design, just through using the deep black as a full color, and the color gives the shape and the geometry of the form. So I'm just running because it's just to give you an example. And from design to fashion, this is Elena Mistran. She's one of the most interesting emerging designers today, and she's designing everything from the dresses, from Marella to the shops, and to the good design. So in Italian design is really crossing through, or like this Ossidiana office, which is they are very young, they are 30 years old, playing with colors and element and nature, which is also today a way to play on different form of landscapes. And irony is fundamental to play. Irony in life is everything. We as Italians, we know it very well, since we are always with a lot of troubles. And all the let's say, the ancient civilization has a very sense of irony to survive. And so good irony means playing with object and working on paradox, like these chairs by Achille Castiglioni, or this, look at this fantastic Paolo Julian element to finger is a biscuit to take Nutella. I love this piece of design. I mean, how can you imagine that? I mean, I think it's fantastic. Or this Giulio Iachetti glass playing with the opposite and the absurd, the paradox. Paradox is also a way to slow down your things. Now, if you look at this glass, you slow down and say, what's that? What's going on? I mean, this kind of breaker helps you to understand what you have in front of you. So good design always makes a difference. Look at this. This is a squeezer in form of St. Peter Square. Or look, this is fantastic. It's to kill mosquito. And you have 5 different sizes in relation to 5 different plans of Italian cities. You have Milano, Rome, Naples, Venice. Since we are trying to kill mosquitoes. And I think it's fantastic. I love it because in Milano you use the Milano ones, not the Venice one. And the irony based, but in the meantime it's very good to kill mosquito. And this is very good to squeeze orange. So it's not just a game, you know? It's a good design based on different understanding. Look at these Venetian elements just to pick up salad, or the Duomo of Milano just to move the omelette, or the other two elements. So playing with the history of architecture and urbanity to produce new icons, jumping of scale for me is very interesting. Or to play making joke of the Italian icons like Elena Mistran did. And then going to the end, and the idea that today good design is going back to basics. This is very important. The sincerity of materials, the fact that craftsmanship is something we are getting back finally. And we are considering craftsmanship not as something nostalgic, but something real. Something that can produce economy, that can produce very interesting quality. And we have masters. Carlo Scarpa used to design everything from one corner to the whole building, and like Michele De Lucchi, look at this, or this is a 3D printed, or this Carlo Scarpa. Look at the quality of design, which is really everything that has been designed working with craftsmanship. But what is very interesting for me is that the new generation of designers is really going back to craftsmanship as a new way of working on design. Like Forma Fantasma, who has been working with coal and the traditional production of coal to produce beautiful contemporary artworks. Or like Giulio Iachetti working with the new Italian craftsmen, or Forma Fantasma again. Look at this work with bread and pottery. And all these things goes to something which is working on changing attitudes. No? This was showing a change in attitudes. This work by Astrid Lullo is playing with the idea of oil as an experience. So she designs something to taste and work with oil in a completely different way, or to work on drinking and smelling together. So to design object, to design new attitude. Objects sometimes influence our way of doing things. So a good design can also change your way of doing things through the act, through the object itself. And this is very important. So the point is that one time a good designer told me, you know, Luca, the point is not to design a new glass, but the new way you will use the glass. And this is very important. This makes a difference between one glass and the glass you notice because it changed your relationship with the reality. And these kind of things are very interesting. She's the same designer, Astrid Lullo. She's 35. She's based in Milano. All this also working before all the human nature, all the human being. This is something which is very strong in the discussion today. Designing something for all the living creatures. So not only for people, but also for birds, like a papagallo here. Okay, so, and my point is, and I will finish with this image, that at the end of the day, we go back to this. We design things for human being. We design things for the body, our bodies, our senses, the real place, the real space. And the way we design it makes the difference. So we have such a huge responsibility. And I think that the Italian design is trying to win with other culture all over the world, the possibility to improve our daily life and also to help us to be more sustainable and to be more aware and keen to the fact that using properly good things makes life better. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. My grandmother never been to Italy. She had a very interesting cuisine that's basically very similar to an Italian cuisine called ravioli. And I don't understand the connection. My grandmother passed away. She had never been to Italy. So maybe you can help me understand the historical connection of food and taste, that element of, and once we understand that, maybe you can also help understand the disruption coming from food revolutions that's happening currently in the world. How could my grandmother cuisine handle disruption coming from McDonald's, for example? There's no taste, there's no value, there's no history. So help me understand that as well. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot my microphone here. You know, there are food and recipes that are crossing the worlds. I showed the bread, the easiest, but the way the pasta became a kind of box for something inside. It's a universe you can find in China, you can find in South America, you can find in Arabic country, in Africa. It's a way to conserve, it's a way to cook, and it's something that is transversal. So, you know, our previous generation used to float and to exchange. And also, before I told you about the fact that the food is dynamic. I'll give you two examples. Today we say, Italian pasta and tomato is so Italian. Okay, pasta is coming from China, tomato is coming from North America. So pasta arrived from China in 12th century with Marco Polo. So before pasta was not existing in Italy. And the tomatoes arrived in Italy in the 16th century. The Pizza Margherita has been invented in the late 19th century because Margherita is the queen of Italy, and the chef produced it with the Italian flag, you know, white and green and red. And this is going on and on and on. Just to say that food is a moving landscape, so probably your grandmother hasn't been in Italy, but the way you cook ravioli is similar to other. She was probably a resdora of your place, producing something which is closer, but it's the same. And this is beautiful because you have certain kind of things that are universal. Imagine for architecture the courtyard. You can find the courtyard here, beautiful, in Pompeii, in Peru, in Central America, in China. So there are things that are crossing our civilization because there are kind of a collective intuition about the quality of something. But in the meantime, traders used to move. You know that the Roman traders used to arrive to India to exchange silk with the Chinese. And between Sri Lanka and India, the Gulf was very narrow, and they used to exchange materials there. So the traders used to travel a lot. And so the flux of recipes and materials and spices, anything is part of our human being. So I think that this is commonly speaking, probably the reason why your grandmother used to cook fantastic ravioli. And the other point in relation to the mass production, you know, I have a double sense, I have a double feeling, because we always forget the mass production was the only effort done by the past century to give proper food to everybody. Like when today we say periphery, no? Periphery is horrible. But then periphery is the result to give a house to everybody, which was not existing before. Good food was for rich people before. In the 20th century, the industrialization was a way to bring good food, medium good food, to a large mass of population. What is going on in the last 20 years is that the industry is also evolving a lot. So it's not just mass production, but quality, and we have laws for that. So on control of the food, on control of the food chain, the process of production. And so we are on a balance between a necessary mass production and something which gets closer to individual, which is one of the challenges of this moment. So how to produce something which is for you and for everybody, but every time different, no? And this is something that can be interesting because the latest generation are expressing a question about how the world is changing, about sustainability and about ecological issues that is very strong. And the industry is feeling that because it's market. So if you don't follow the market, you lose buyers. So, and this is very interesting. If you imagine how much the supermarket has changed in the last 20 years, you know, ecologic food before was not existing, or celiac food was not existing. Now you have a section for that, which means that there is a market. If there's a section, there's a market. And this is necessary. We are living in a capitalistic world. So this is the world we have, okay? But since we are in a capitalistic age, we need to sell something. Since the world is changing, and the social pressure is making a difference on that. So I think this is very interesting to follow and to understand how the food production is changing in relation to a changing world, which is really expressing strong and radical question in relation to how we live.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Professor Molinari. Fascinating. And my question is on a topic which is very close to me personally. And so I hope it's not something which people take it as general statement. My personal peeve or anger or irritation is, and I call it crime against food. You mentioned something about the French food. Great, that's French food. It has the distinct identity. You have the Italian food, you have the Japanese, whatever, that's fine. What really gets to me, and I'm not talking about any particular cuisine, I'm talking generally across the road, is that when people start putting pineapple on pizza. Now, I'm not a historian by any means. I do not know much about Italian history in terms of food.
We don't have pineapple in
precisely, or how coffee is consumed.
Oh yes.
So two major favorite Italian foods, pizza and coffee, have seen crimes committed against them because the way they are consumed in different cultures. I shall not name those cultures. Yeah. And this happens, of course, to other food. I mean, I'm an Indian origin, so I know how Indian food gets. Right. If I go to the UK and I cringe when I see what Indian food is there, or local Arabic food when I see it outside. So how do Italians take this? Means, to see the most popular dish in the world, a pizza, and then you put pineapple on it, or you put, or you drink coffee in a different way. There's no garlic bread, I believe, in Italy. There is bruschetta, but there's no garlic bread per se.
Bruschetta is different.
Yeah, bruschetta. So if one looks into it, it's fascinating, but it's also, for me, it gets to me that there's this. I know the industrialization. I know putting food on the table. I know all those things. It's important that you feed the people and get good quality food for the masses, which was an exclusivity earlier on. But there is a limit. There's a line you draw.
I had a discussion with one of the two curators of the exhibition. She is Italian, but she has been living for 15 years in New York. And I say, oh, the pizza and pineapple. I say, well, but this is not pizza. This is a Chicago-style pizza. Just to say that, so she was immediately grounding that on a tradition in Chicago that has traditionally a lot of pineapple. In Chicago, it's full of pineapple there, no? No, it's freezing, there's no pineapple at all. No, but I'm just to say that food is fluid, really fluid. And the dialogue between what we consider crimes and the tradition is very subtle, because even the tradition has been changing a lot. As Indian cooking, which is one of the most fabulous way of cooking in the world, is so complicated in relation to region, to groups, to families, and even on the same recipes, families fight. We know on ravioli, people can kill. I mean, it's so which means that. There's a limit, there's a border, but I think that the best way is to work on awareness, to culture, to let the people understand the quality and the sense of belongingness that is behind food. Culture is the only way to survive barbarian everywhere. And I really don't understand why most of the state cut on culture in this moment, which is the only way to survive to this world in this moment. Because through culture you design education and awareness about ecologic, about the way we consume, hyper-consumption. Well, we know in 20 years one of the key elements, one of the key problems will be water. Okay? So today, now there are companies working how to produce the same amount of food with half of the water. So those are the real challenges. But the people doesn't know. So if you don't start educating people from childhood on that, because the child today will have the problem in 20 years. No? So this is very important. So working on culture and awareness and working on food education, like music education, art education, design education, is the best way to generate better citizens. And then we see, and then we eat together a pasta, a pizza with pineapple, and probably we like it. Who knows? Who knows?
We dreamt the day when we make samosa, which samosa is very close to our heart in this part of
So we must be patient. We must be patient and goes on.
But you can always label it under innovation.
Sure.
I mean, because you cannot stop people from, growing.
I totally agree with you. I completely agree with you.
So, for me, I am a vegan, so technically, I don't even mix fruit with, protein and carbohydrate. I'm extremely healthy. But I don't mind seeing a pizza with pineapple on it.
And even vegan is a kind of cultural, reaction to the world we are living. Absolutely.
And it falls under innovation, and everybody's
Yeah,
happy with it.
sure.
No, maybe different question.
Yes.
You touched briefly on two
I
elements.
have to be fast. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. I mean, the two ingredients are food and design at the same
Yes.
time, and both of them nowadays, obviously, they're both subject to forgery, copies, fake ingredients,
Yes,
and fake
yes,
design. In one way, fake design and fake ingredients means also accessibility, right? Because normally if you go for design, means too expensive, primary ingredients too expensive. So we could be in favor of accessibility on one end, but how do we protect also the evolution of something which doesn't really represent the
Because
original?
fake design is one of the worst things on Italian industry, for example, but all the brands all over the world. But in the last 20 years, for example, mass production companies has been investing a lot on good design. Like Giulio Iachetti has been working with the Coop, and they design an amazing series of simple, basic objects like €1 each, which has been well designed. So I think that sometimes the challenge is also to bring good designers to do basic things. And all the mass production start with the good design, and it's the history of design, so it's something we know. So it's not just a... Good design doesn't mean being expensive, always. And then we know that sometimes being expensive means materials, craftsmanship, hours of work. I mean, behind something, behind a Ferrari, there are like months of work, and 200 people and materials, and so we know the sense of the cost. And then you pay the brand, okay. But I think that it's very important to work on both sides, and also to bring designers to work on line of production that are not affected by design, which can improve the quality. So I think this is one of the challenge for a lot of designers can find a lot of work in that field, because sometimes there are factories that they don't know that they need the good design, and when they started, you see the result in terms of also market and selling.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I'm also an architect and I love food.
So say no one is perfect.
Yeah.
I'm actor too, that's why.
So I went several times for certain food exhibitions, and heading on the accusation of Bob, I feel it is a crime when the people, they create some nice artwork, but eatable.
Oh yeah.
And I feel it's then a crime, and you destroy art actually when you eat it. And in 2009, I was in the Gulf Food Exhibition, and it was fantastic. And what the people create as a dessert, as a food, you really don't want to eat it because it looks like design, architectural work. So what is your opinion on eating artwork and architectural design?
Well, beauty helps eating very well. I mean, today I was in a fantastic lunch, and there was a set of desserts that I spent hours looking at them and saying, well, I was attracted. It's a part of the seduction game. Beauty is part of the seduction game for me.
Okay, I make it very easy. It depends how hungry you are. If you're starving, you can eat anything in front of you.
Is it enough?
Okay, I think that
You want to stop? Or
I think it's time to end up because it's. So do you want to say something? No. Okay. Yes. No. Then we. Okay. Thank you so much again.